What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. I hope you're having a fantastic week. As always, we are back to do a review of AEW's Revolution pay-per-view from Sunday night at Chase Center in San Francisco. And again, guys, if you listened to the preview show, which I appreciated if you did, this was one of the shows where the build and the hype and the lineup was, I'm not gonna say the lineup, but at least the build and the hype for a good amount of the matches left a lot to be desired, right? But like I had mentioned, it was one of those where you knew you were going to get a good show coming out of it, right? I would say 9 times out of 10. But I can't even recall which one. But AEW always delivers on pay-per-views, and this was, of course, another one of those, to say the very least. I'm not going to say it was one of their best, but man, the main event alone just made it so worth your time and just so much fun to watch. And I think for me personally, that's easily my favorite Iron Man match, probably of all time. It's kind of crazy to think about and to say, and ask me again maybe at the end of the year, right? But if you would have asked me before this, my favorite Iron Man match was, surprisingly, maybe to some of you, because it's not maybe the most popular one, but I loved Judgment Day 2000. Just that pay-per-view in general, I just was, I remember as a kid, and again, not to start off on a tangent or a side note, but as a kid, that's one of those VHS tapes that I got from Blockbuster that, not to date myself, right? But that I was obsessed with. And I can't tell you how many times I would re-rent I almost said DVD, that VHS tape to rewatch it. And I'll never forget the cover of it was Kane in that full face mask. It was just simple, right? But I loved it. I loved it that they were in Kentucky because the way that they opened with Team Eck, if you guys remember, Edge, Christian, and Kurt Angle, they were facing off against Too Cool, which was Scotty 2 Hotty, Grandmaster Sexay, rest in peace, man, and Rikishi. And they, Edge and Christian and Kurt Angle, Team Eck, they opened, since of course they were in Kentucky, with they brought out, gosh, those bags, those potato sack bags, essentially. You guys know what I'm talking about. That you would have at like state fairs and shit, where you would put your feet in and you have to jump across, to race to see who could get to the other side faster. There was those sacks with banjos and like fake teeth and straw hats, bandanas to tie around their throats. Just pure, just mockery, right, of what their interpretation of the fine Kentucky folk people are out there, and just country people in general. And man, just, I'll never forget when, because that was, of course, when they were doing the 5 second pose. Remember, flash photography, all that good shit. The prime time. But Edge, the way he rose his head and his eyes, how he did cross-eyed, and the teeth, those fake-ass teeth that he had in, just mocking Kentucky, it was just so great. But another reason why I love Judgment Day 2000, if you guys haven't seen it, or if it's been years, decades at this point, sad to say, if you've seen that, go back and watch it. But the whole point I brought that up was to get to the main event of that night, which was, like I said, the Iron Man match between Triple H and The Rock, with Shawn Michaels as a special guest referee. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I'm not going to go over here because, again, this isn't a review of Judgment Day 2000. But that Iron Man match just had so much drama and story built into it, but it didn't take away from the match. It added to it, right? Especially with the aspect of Shawn being there. So, yeah, I recommend you guys checking that out. But I say all that to say, it's been 23 years for me since I've come across the Iron Man match that's topped that one for me personally. And what we saw between MJF and Bryan Danielson, I think, was just an instant classic, as cliche as that is. I guess I'll go over my main thoughts here, right off the bat, because how can I not? Just, I loved everything about it. There wasn't a point in that match where, and I can give them credit for this, where I probably can't even say the same for my previous favorite Iron Man match that I was just talking about, with Hunter and The Rock, where there was a few moments where, I'm not going to say like I was bored, but that would be kind of tedious, right? Which is to be expected when you have literally a 60-minute match by default. But the Iron Man match that we got with MJF and Danielson, I never felt that. I was hooked from the jump. I think the atmosphere was perfect. MJF was just a masterpiece. Like everything from his entrance, the symphony, him wearing the mask, the devil mask, and everything. It was so well done and just such a beautiful way to start his true journey as AEW champion and going on to defend Triple B for the next year, which again, if you listen to the previous show, I went on a little rant at the end there in regards to my long-term booking for MJF, WWE, and all that shit, and just fantasy booking, I guess, right? But he's a fucking star. Like, this dude, and it's annoying to say, right? Because we're supposed to hate him, and he's going to very quickly get to that point where how can you hate him, right? And that's where his just superb mic skills are going to have to come into play and amp up a bit more. And not that he's lacking, right? Of course, but just in the sense that they're going to have to shift because he's going to win people over when he puts on performances like that. And maybe that's another reason why he doesn't. Maybe they realize how great of a wrestler he is, and that's another reason why they hold him off. Again, if you guys have listened to me in the past, I've been in the camp where I wish we would get, or I'm not going to say I wish, but I would like for us to get more MJF matches. Not every week, not even every other week, but at least just maybe even once a month is too much. But once, I don't know, just more, right? Just more MJF wrestling. But yeah, but I totally get why they don't. But with that being said, just the story that they told throughout the match and how it had to go into overtime and just the way that kind of predicted, not to pat myself in the back, but the way that it started off just as a pure wrestling match, right? In a pure wrestling clinic, and then transitioned into MJF doing the heel shit that MJF does, which he should. And then at the very end, just stealing the victory with the oxygen tank. And that was the perfect ending. And if you guys are listening to this but you haven't seen the actual pay-per-view yet, or if you haven't seen the main event, please do yourself a favor and go check it out. I'm actually going to turn it back on once we wrap up here and watch it again, which is crazy between that and Judgment Day, to be honest with you guys. Now I'm kind of feeling to go back and watch Judgment Day. So we'll see, but man, the main event really solidified as well that MJF is solid in the ring, and he's the total package, right? He is what he says he is, and that's what makes him even more of a easy person to hate, right? Because when you have someone who's that good at everything that he does, or at least everything wrestling wise that we are able to witness, it kind of pisses you off, right? Because he knows that he's great and he's going to rub it in your face, and you're going to hear about it constantly, which is, again, his duty and what he's supposed to do. So to me, it's just fun fucking hating this guy, right? And I'm going to hate him as long as we can, because like I said, I think very, very soon in the near future, it's going to be almost a given that we're going to have to, the love is just going to be just too much, we're not going to be able to resist cheering him, and it's just going to, I think, just snowball. Whereas the hate for Roman Reigns kind of snowballed, right, in the years leading to his heel turn. I think it's going to be the exact opposite for MJF. I think it's going to be the love is just going to grow and grow and grow. And again, he has a masterful way of making people hate him, so I could be wrong. But that's even more to the point where I love to see it and I'm here to see it. So with that being said, I think Bryan Danielson should not go remiss here as well, because I think Bryan Danielson is the fucking best wrestler in the world. If you want to just say right now or for the past few years or whatever, I think the dude is just, it's insane how versatile he is, and how literally every opponent he's in the ring with, they have a solid, good match. Like it's kind of frustrating as well, but at least Bryan isn't the type where he rubs it in your face. It's like, damn, like this dude, like he makes it look so easy, right, in the ring. And to think that just a few years ago, he was not medically cleared to wrestle, and to see the caliber of matches that he's putting on in this main event, the Iron Man match is another one to throw up there in the books for him as well. It's just the story that they told going into this, and with Bryan making it a point that he wanted to essentially beat the wrestling out of MJF, right? Like force him to put on a wrestling clinic with him, or at least push him to the limits. And I think, again, the story that they told with the ending, and especially the falls, making it 3-2 for a while, and then tying it up in the overtime. Everything was so well done. And shout out to Tony Khan. Me personally, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to say gave shit, because I don't view it that way, but again, just kind of spoke my truth on my feelings on the build to the pay-per-view. But the main event delivered, and I think that's always what your goal is, right? When you put on a pay-per-view. But man, like everyone involved in this, from the story behind it to the match layout, the producers, agents, whatever, anyone who's involved, like, shout out to you guys. Again, if you haven't seen it, please go back and watch it. There's not even a way to sit here and break it down. First of all, because it's an hour plus. I think it ended up going like 64 minutes. So we would be here an extremely long time. So with that being said, we will get on to the remaining portion of the card. But as always, guys, I appreciate you guys for listening and downloading and checking out the pod, all that good stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS. You can follow the show at @KickashPodcast_. But like I said, we will continue on with the remaining portion of the card from Revolution. The opener was Ricky Starks facing off against Chris Jericho, with JAS supposedly banned from ringside. The first thing that sticks out to me with this match was my frustration, right? And this wasn't a huge thing. But the whole, main stipulation was JAS was supposed to be banned from ringside, and then towards the end, right, in the final sequence or not the final sequence, but the final moments of the match, Sammy Guevara just strolls down the ramp, there's no big deal, even though there's a stipulation and there's supposedly a contract, screw that, there's nothing holding me back, there's no consequences, no nothing. And then Action Andretti just shows up out of nowhere, which, again, at least you can explain him being there, right, even though I guess I missed something. I didn't see him come out at all. But to the point where when he was spearing and taking down Sammy, I was like, who the fuck is that? Where did this dude come from? But yeah, and again, I may have missed it on commentary, but where did Sammy come from, and why was he allowed down there? I don't understand. And it's just frustrating, because it speaks to the bigger picture of just stipulations or rules just not really holding up. And for me, I'm not some prude, right, or anything like that, obviously, but I don't know, I think rules are important in wrestling, because that's what heels need to break them, and bad guys need to break, they need them to break, right, so they can continue to make people hate them, and it's just the easiest trade in the book. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to place the benefit of the doubt out there that I missed a huge chunk, and that explains Sammy coming out and there being no uproar from the referee or backstage security or anything like that, trying to bring it backstage because he's not supposed to be there, or costing Jericho the match, for breaking the stipulation in the contract. So I don't know. And again, that's not even, I guess, the main point here, or a big deal, because at the end of the day, the winner ended up being Ricky Starks, which is the obvious choice here. I did say I was maybe concerned is the strong word or the wrong word, but I was thinking maybe we would get a return of the Big Show here, and the whole Jericho thing, but we did not, and I'm happy about that. I'm happy to be wrong in a sense, and I'm happy that Ricky got the W here. I think he definitely needed it. Jericho did not. Jericho is just obviously a made man. So yeah, I'm really stoked for Ricky, and I'm excited to see what happens going forward. After that, we had Jungle Boy facing off against Christian Cage, and the moment Christian Cage came out, the night was won. Again, if you guys have listened to me, you know how much I fucking loved him and his turtleneck, because he just looks like so much of a prick. And he came out in a fucking turtleneck, a sleeveless turtleneck, all black, right? It was just perfect. If you didn't see the pay-per-view, please just look up and look up a picture of Christian from Revolution. It was just tremendous, fucking tremendous. And he had to have been hot and uncomfortable with that thing, but it just shows what a true professional Christian Cage is. That being said, Jungle Boy came out wearing jeans and his Jungle Boy boots, so not in his traditional Jungle Boy attire. I can't wait until we can stop calling him Jungle Boy. I just feel so weird calling him Jungle Boy. I just want to stick with Jack Perry. Yeah, it's just, dude's a man now, like, I get it, right? Obviously, Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys, like, it's not, again, probably that big of a deal. But for me, whatever reason, it just feels weird calling him Jungle Boy. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's like almost like a pet name. I don't know, that'd be kind of a weird pet name, maybe, too, but I don't know. But this match did end up being the final burial match, so it was the, essentially like a buried alive match, and this was very good. I think this proved, or not proved, but this really helped put that edge almost on Jungle Boy, no pun intended there with Christian, but it gave him that extra layer of badassery, right, that we needed from Jungle Boy. So this match really, I'm not going to say it surprised me, but it really exceeded my expectations and just how good it ended up being. And I really enjoyed the way the casket was set up. I think towards the end, and it was a nice added touch with having Jungle Boy's family, his mom and his sister at ringside again. And I mean, if if there's any denial that those three are related, then you're just living your whole life in denial, because the hair alone, they all have the same head of hair. It's fucking insane. You definitely know where Jungle Boy got his hair from. And it's beautiful hair. I love it. Beautiful hair, guys, for the record. But yeah, the fact that I liked that I was kind of concerned with where the location of the casket would be too in the arena, right? Like, I was hoping it wasn't going to be, I didn't want them to get too cute, right? And go outside or backstage or anything like that, because to me, I like that AEW's really made it a point to, besides like specific areas for like interview in front of the TV, you really don't see much from like people walking backstage in the hallways or walking to various locker rooms or anything like that. So I like that portion is still, I mean, we have seen more and more, or a little bit more recently, but still nowhere near to the point of WWE. So I kind of like that, and I liked the location of the casket, which is maybe a weird take, but I really enjoyed the ending. Well, two parts. I think it was very poetic and very, I guess poetic is the best word there. For two reasons: that Jungle Boy hit the concerto on Christian at the top of the stage, and then of course ended up getting the victory. But with him putting Christian Cage in the casket and then kind of hesitating there, the probably WWE fan in me was like, oh my god, Luchasaurus is going to come out and cost Jungle Boy, and he's going to look stupid because he's standing there for minutes, what felt like, when he can just shut the lid, and reminisce on it later. But he didn't. He did stand there forever looking at Christian, but then I realized, it's, character-wise, it's probably some, very, of course, difficult for him. He's essentially bearing, now a second father figure, as what he had referred to as Christian, at some point. So, yeah, it's and then the way that casket just dropped, like the second he shut the door, the casket just immediately just dropped into a grave, which was very, very dramatic, but I dug it. It was straight to the point, and just exactly like AEW, shut the lid, drop down onto the next. But of course, Jungle Boy did officially get the W here, and it was the right call. Next up, we had House of Black facing off against the Elite. And they, just literally, I think the fans were so stoked. You could tell this was one of the matches that the fans were really looking forward to, because immediately they started with, I think it was like, "This is awesome" chants or something. But the moment that really stood out to me was when Kenny Omega and Malachi Black, rather, got into the ring and were standing off face to face, and the crowd just immediately I don't know if they chanted "Holy shit" or, again, "This is awesome" there. But man, like, I'm just dying for Kenny Omega and Malachi Black to get like a singles feud, right? And a singles story. I just think it would be so just incredible to watch. And I think it would be the match itself obviously would be just stellar, but I would like to actually see like a story, and like some promos built up to it, and just some substance, and just something else besides just the kick-ass match that we know that we're going to get. But I'm happy to be wrong with this one as well. I believe my official pick was that the Elite were going to retain, and they did not. The House of Black picked up the victory here in our new trios champions, which I'm I will say I'm surprised by it. I'm happy, obviously, don't get me wrong, but I'm surprised that we literally just went through a best of 7 series with the Elite, and now they lost the titles not too long after, and without really doing much with them. I don't know, I'm just really confused by their run with the championships. But I am excited because I hope that frees up the Young Bucks to go back into the tag division, and then Kenny Omega to move back into the singles division. And I'm very intrigued to see if they're going to remain faces, or if they're going to, go, or if they're going to, what are they even? Are they faces or are they heels? I don't know. I'm just intrigued to figure out what the fuck they are too, going forward. Especially with Don Callis, because Don Callis is the bad guy, but he's still with them, so I don't know. Like, it's just all really confusing. But with that being said, I, again, obviously really enjoyed this match. How can you not? And I'm very happy that House of Black picked up the W and are our new Trios champions. And I hope this means that they actually get more time on TV and more story and just more shit to do. After that, we had Jamie Hayter facing off against Saraya and Ruby Soho for the AEW Women's World Championship. And first thing that stuck out to me, I was very surprised by the lack of cheers and the disdain for Saraya, and of course, storyline wise, right? But it's just very, I don't know, it's just very weird to me. Like, I would have fully expected her to, if you would have asked me 6-8 months ago if Paige, Saraya, were to come into AEW, would she be running the AEW, like the women's division, or at least be like the main face, or competing for the face, I would say duh, obviously, and she's not. And I'm maybe that's just me seeing her in a higher light than some people from her WWE days, but I don't know. And again, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm actually kind of pleasantly surprised. I'm happy that the attention isn't just blindly being placed on ex-WWE talent, and I think that was the trend for the whole night, and which we'll get into as we go throughout the card. But a lot of the talent that went over in the various matches were AEW talent, and I guess quote homegrown talent, right? But I think it was very well done in that regard as a overall. But this match as well, I think this match was really good. I think they all really played off of each other well, and the story again for this one was pretty good going into it, with the whole AEW originals trying to feed off against the WWE talent that are invading the land and shit like that. But the ending did come kind of like out of nowhere, I will say. It ended with Jamie Hayter just literally doing a roll up on Ruby Soho. But the sequence, it was, I forget the exact move that Ruby, or that Jamie had gone for on Paige, or Saraya rather. I don't know. There's a move that she hit prior, but to me, I was not expecting the roll up victory there. And I guess maybe that's supposed to be the point of the whole roll up, but I just was not expecting it at all. But after that the match itself, we pretty much got to the whole point of the story here, which was Ruby Soho turning her back on the AEW originals and teaming and aligning with Saraya and Toni Storm, and they finished it off with doing the spray paint thing on Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. So yeah, again, we'll see where this goes and continues to go. I think this is probably building towards a blood and guts match. I think as we continue to build each side and stack more and more people, I think we're gonna eventually get there. Yeah, it was a pretty decent match, and again, I'm just very intrigued by this women's division, and I'm still surprised that we didn't get any reference really to Jade and why she wasn't on the card. And again, I'm not one to just automatically throw people on there, right? I like that you have to fight for your spot on the pay-per-view card, but I don't know, when you're a champion, I don't know, and again, maybe that goes to show, obviously, right, and that's a reason why you shouldn't have so many championships, which isn't Jade's fault, obviously, but I don't know, that's a whole other topic for another day, but yeah, I'm just surprised that they didn't do anything for her, even like pre-show, last minute, or anything. But yeah, we'll see what that means going forward. But moving on, we had Hangman Adam Page facing off against Jon Moxley in the Texas Death Match, and this was just fucking brutal. I think to me, the moment that stood out was the stabbing of Hangman in the forehead by Mox with the fork, to the point where the blood was literally spurting and spraying onto John, onto his body. Like, it was literally splattering on to his body. Like, that what would happen if you're actually stabbing someone. So that was fucking insane. I legit cringed and looked away. I'm not even gonna lie. There was just so many points in this match. If you can handle it, you gotta go watch it. It's just, there's so much barbed wire, like wrapped chairs. There were bricks. There was one point where John Moxley had put Hangman's hand between two bricks, and stomped on the brick. Which, you know, at some point too, it's whatever. I'm not gonna get into it. You guys know where I'm probably going with that, or where I was gonna go. But regardless, it was a fucking just bloodbath and just a barn burner. And I think I was right with my prediction. I think it only took about 60 seconds for John Moxley to start bleeding. So there's that. Motherfucker came to the ring with the fork in his boot, so he's just insane. Dude is legit crazy. But the way the match ended. But before I get to that, there was one point I wrote down in my notes here with what I thought was going to be I'm trying not to be negative, but what I thought should most likely, in common sense, be the ending of the match was when Moxley had hit Hangman Page with a curb stop on the brick. For two reasons, it kind of stood out, right? Obviously, you would expect that to be the end of the match if your head gets stomped onto a brick. But as well, first of all, just the whole curb stop to begin with, you know, it's obviously Seth Rollins' main move, and I think we did get some like chants of the fans kind of singing Rollins' theme music, which is kind of cool. But I don't know. And again, I'm not sitting here thinking like, oh, this is a sign Mox is going back to WWE, because he is probably the last person I would think that would go back. But yeah, it was just an interesting little tidbit there. But the ending of the match itself, again, you have to see this match to really believe some of it. The ending, though, came when Hangman forced John Moxley to literally tap out with a chain link, pretty much lynching in the Texas death match. He hung him over the top rope, and it was like literally hanging him by his throat with this chain link. It was just, I'm just so happy he tapped out, right? You know, because if you don't tap out from that, then I just don't know what the fuck we're doing at this point. Like, that's just too much, you know? So yeah, and it was pretty quick, but I kind of predicted, I'm pretty sure, that Hangman was going to get the victory here, but I'm still surprised to see it. I don't know. And the way he kind of left, like, just not really, again, like, he definitely was bloody and he went through hell of shit. There's just, I don't know. We'll see how the selling goes on Wednesday for both of them. But I don't think we should see John. I think he should take some time off. But I don't think he is, because I think he's going to be at the next their first house show that they're doing in a couple weeks. But we'll see. And I personally think that this could be the beginning of a setup for Hangman to be MJF's next challenger going into Double or Nothing. So we'll see. But next up we have Wardlow facing off against Samoa Joe. And this match was kind of, I don't want to say disappointing, but I mean, first of all, how do you follow a death match, right? But the match the ending kind of came out of nowhere. The ending, again, I was surprised. It came when Wardlow got a submission victory on Samoa Joe. He won with a rear naked choke submission, and was screaming "die" at Joe. And again, this was kind of reminiscent of the women's match for me. Like, I just legit was not expecting that finish right then, like, really at all. And again, maybe that's probably the point, but yeah, again, the right victor, but I was kind of surprised, and I felt bad for them having to follow that death match, but we'll see what that means for Wardlow going forward. I mean, obviously he's the champion, but we have, Powerhouse Hobbs, rather, face, I'm pretty certain he has, what is it, the chip? or the contract, whatever he won, to be the next challenger for Wardlow. So we'll see. Next up, we had the tag team championships, or the tag team championship match, rather. Your champions are the Gun Club, defending against the Acclaimed, Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, and facing off against Orange Cassidy and Danhausen. Orange Cassidy had this nice black new suit. Well, not suit, but top and jean joggers, which were pretty dope. And again, the fact that he wrestles in them, it's shout out to him. But I don't know. This match really, I don't know. It kind of just didn't do it for me. I think they really, I don't know. I'm going to hold out a little bit longer, but I think they really did a disservice to the Acclaim by taking the championships off of them so quickly and putting them on the Gun Club. And then, of course, I'm just going to get right to it, with the Guns retaining the championships, and then now FTR making their return, and that being the new direction for the Gun Club. And I guess to me, as I'm thinking it out and saying it out loud, I could see, obviously, FTR regaining the championships and then facing off against the Young Bucks again to kind of finish that off. If FTR do, in fact, end up leaving and going wherever, or just leaving for a little bit and then returning contract-wise. But I don't know. To me, I think you really, really left a lot of money, probably literally, on the table with not dragging out the Acclaim's run and reign longer. And I don't even know how they would get him back at this point, because now you get everyone excited for FTR. So to me, I don't know. To me, that was a little bit of a miss. So again, I'm gonna hold out hope and see how this ends up playing out. But I don't know. I don't have a good feeling. And like I said, going into it, the addition of Orange Cassidy and Danhausen and Triple J, Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, not necessary at all. I get, right, Danhausen was there to take the pin, but I don't know. I guess maybe you can make the case for you did that to save the Acclaimed from taking the L, but I don't know. To me, it was just too much, and just a little unnecessary. But that was the card, because then, of course, after that was the main event, which we already touched on, with MJF, of course, retaining his championship. You guys know my thoughts going forward for MJF long-term, and again, I think in the immediate future, I think we're going to probably gear towards a Hangman Page versus MJF at Double or Nothing, or maybe Adam Cole, right? Adam Cole is set to make his debut, but his in-ring return, I think on the 29th or towards the end of March at least. They had mentioned, because that's correlating with the debut of that new show, I think All Access. So we'll see. But again, just shout out Bryan Danielson too. Like, dude's a fucking just a machine. And just makes it look so easy. But I didn't even think about the sudden death rules, even with it ending and potentially ending in a draw, and I loved how they did it. I loved the story like that, or the story ending. So yeah, I just loved it, and I loved how MJF, yes, he did cheat to win, right? He did cheat, but he scored the final pinfall when Bryan Danielson tapped out to the label lock, and I think that right there just really shows what type of dude Bryan Danielson is, but the perfect culmination for the story of the match, because the whole story, for me, just taking all the personal shit out of it, was Bryan was going in there to teach a lesson to MJF wrestling-wise, and to force the wrestling out of him, and to beat the wrestling out of him. And yes, like I said, MJF did cheat and take his heel tactics as he should, but the fact that he won with having Danielson tap out to the label lock, and it being the label lock of all holds, which is so poetic again, and I think they just did such a great job, and I'm just so, I don't want to say proud, but I'm just so happy with how that match played out. And again, shout out to everyone involved, and I haven't actually watched the press conference that happened after it, because I literally was late watching the pay-per-view, and I'm just on delay and just behind on everything. But I definitely wanted to get this out to you guys, a little recap, and I'm very excited to see what AEW has in store for us on Wednesday. I tried to go to their website, and they do not have a preview up for Wednesday's show, even though we're about 24 hours away from it. So that's cool. And I guess I could have gone to Twitter, but I just didn't feel like diving into the Twitterverse right now. So there's that. I'm assuming we'll probably get some type of statement from MJF on the mic. Well, I would hope so. And then we'll probably get some type of announcement from Wardlow or some type of addressing of him regaining the championship, and then some type of addressing, like I was going to say, in regards to when we'll see him facing off against Powerhouse Hobbs. So yeah, we'll go from there and see. But thank you guys so much for checking out the show and listening. I hope you guys have a fantastic week going forward.